Like everything, the pandemic has also messed up the Oscars, because now it's not just movies that came out in 2020 that are eligible, but any movie that comes out before February 28th. I guess that kind of works with the pandemic, because Hollywood's too scared to release any big movies during this period. So you're going to have, this might be the best time ever to be an Oscar movie, because they kind of have a captive audience. And the Oscars themselves are in late April. The whole thing's weird, and it doesn't give a feeling of looking at a year in film, in my opinion. We'll see what happens when we have the actual Oscars. I'm hoping that with an odder situation, we might have finally some different types of movies go to the forefront. We'll see. But one thing that hasn't changed is mainstream audiences' extreme lack of interest in the top contenders. In fact, the vast majority of Oscar films never do well at the box office. No one cares. And when people do go search out the winners, they're often like, I can't believe this won. So this is why Hollywood films are either made to make money or to win Oscars. And if you can do both, well, then you're golden in every sense of the word. I know some of you, particularly those of you who are interested in award-winning films, are going to be like, that's not true, Grace. But it's true, in the vast majority of the times. So, and sometimes Oscar winners will use their films to, also franchises are starting to mine this talent. And sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes it doesn't. But that's kind of the system that we have in Hollywood right now. And also, because there's so little interest in these movies, it's really hard to review them. I'm getting them early as a critic. I'm a member of not only a Rotten Tomatoes critic, but I'm a member of the Critics' Choice Awards. So we're getting all these movies now so that we can vote on them. I want to tell you about them. I feel I have a responsibility to let you know which ones that you should definitely check out and which ones you should maybe take a pass on, or at least prepare yourselves for. So, but it's hard because there's no interest in them. The reviews don't usually do particularly well. So this year I thought I'd try reviewing them in batches, a group review. And you guys tell me what you think of this. So today I'm going to do mini reviews for Promising Young Woman, Nomadland, One Night in Miami, The Father, and Minari in the order in which I liked them best to worst. And I'll also let you know where and when you can watch them. So by far, the best of the bunch is Promising Young Woman, which hit theaters in December. I know some of you have already seen it, but today it hit premium video on demand. So you can get it today. And as I tweeted, don't sleep on this movie. And I thought that the trailer made it look like a bit like a chore, but it's not. I think it's a fabulous, fabulous film. This is the first movie produced by Margot Robbie that's been released where she didn't cast herself. And what a difference this makes. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Margot Robbie is a very talented actress, and I've often said so in my reviews of some of her films. But I feel like she always miscasts herself. I think she doesn't have good self-realization. And she would have been horribly miscast here. In fact, there was a bit of a scandal where a Variety critic said that Carey Mulligan wasn't attractive enough to play the lead and that Margot Robbie should have played the lead instead of just producing the film. That was appalling and totally played into what the film is trying to say. But I think Margot Robbie would have been horrible in this role. Carey Mulligan is perfectly cast, and I think she looks fantastic. I think she looks great. I think almost any person who has the right mindset, a healthy mindset, would feel that she's just a superstar here. I hope this is a career-elevating performance it deserves to be. We so often see men reach a breaking point and take action. It's so cool to see a woman do it, and do it so effectively and entertainingly. Oh, I thought it was great. Now, some people are describing this as a #MeToo movie, which is unfortunate because, like feminism, these are good causes, important causes, that have unfortunately and unfairly quickly taken on negative connotations in society. Oh, women are just complaining again. That's horrible, but it's true that women are always put through a negative, dismissive filter, which this movie is talking about. Women are people, just like everyone's a person. I'm a big believer on evaluating every single individual on a case-by-case basis. It's not healthy or helpful to society to make assumptions. But I think that it's something that's also unfortunately very clear is that if you're not part of the dominant group in a society, you're seen as disposable, less than. And so I think that, that's something also that this movie is about. And it's fascinating to see person after person underestimate Carey Mulligan's cunning character because she's a woman and therefore couldn't possibly be a threat. Oh, how wrong they are. But this movie is just full of surprises. Like I'm pretty good at guessing how things are going to go because I watch a lot of movies, a lot of TV. But this genuinely surprised me, and in a really good way. I was like, that's brilliant. And one of the brilliant things about Promising Young Woman is that it doesn't preach. It never preaches, but tells the story in a Tarantino-style fashion. I think I've been referencing him a lot lately, although I'm going to reference a couple of filmmakers here. But I think copying Tarantino was a good way to go here. This reminded me not only of early Tarantino, like True Romance, which was one of his first screenplays. He didn't direct, but it was, he wrote that. But then also Django Unchained, which was also about a person thought of as disposable and underestimated, who proved to be anything but and fought back. Promising Young Woman also reminds me a bit of the fabulous Netflix series Glow. Oh, that was criminally underrated, and the pandemic also cheated Glow out of its final season. So sad. And in fact, 2 actors from that show actually are in this movie, and of course do a wonderful job as they always do. Bo Burnham, YouTube star, turned comedian, turned award-winning writer-director, co-stars, and shines in a role that is extremely complex. I'm not going to say anything else. Promising Young Woman, as I said, is full of twists and turns, and it's genuinely clever and surprising. It's the kind of dark awards film that often has the best chance of appealing to the mainstream. I hope this finds an audience. It's also worth noting that Margot Robbie has been admirably trying to promote female talent behind the camera, and has finally, after a few missteps, found someone who was worthy of that effort. Emerald Fennell, who was the showrunner on Killing Eve Season 2. That wasn't as good as Season 1, but it was good, and this is really good. And she also played Camilla on The Crown. She's an actress, too. She should be on every studio's shortlist for writers and directors going forward. And if they want someone to do a Harley and Ivy movie or that Gotham City Sirens film, here's who should do it. She's amazing. I'm now suddenly a huge fan. I loved everything in this movie. As I tweeted, Oscar noms for everyone and a couple of wins, I think, for sure. Next, The Father, which hits theaters February 26th in the US and then rolls out across the globe from there. The elderly are often seen as acting erratically and irrationally, a quote-unquote nuisance. But The Father shows what Anthony Hopkins sees as old age begins to play tricks on his mind. We often see fictional characters of all ages hurled into nightmare worlds where down is up and up is down. But it seems that can really happen, and often does, with dementia. Francis Florian Zeller directs his own stage play adapted for the screen. He adapted it for the screen. And it's the kind of taut, economical, and pristine indie film that Europe is famous for. And on that note, you've got a who's who here of British TV talent that makes those shows so popular. And of course, some Oscar winners too. Hopkins, in the lead role, finally portrays someone suffering from dementia, not as a poor victim who's unrelatable, but as a fighter who could be you or me. The Father is a thrilling, devastating movie which will change how you view old age. I loved it. I thought it was great. Now, for the next 3 films, they're all well made, but not entertaining. I didn't find them entertaining at all. I didn't enjoy watching them. In fact, I watched all 3 of these in a row and I was like, I don't know if I can watch any more awards films. And then thankfully I watched The Father and Promising Young Woman. I mean, is an awards film art or entertainment? Does it have to choose? Should it? I think that's an interesting question. Some of you like to be tortured, as we found from discussing movies. But this was brutal in my opinion. All right, so Nomadland is what I would put next. I think of the 3, this was the best of the bunch. This hits theaters and Hulu same day, February 19th. Now, it's the most engaging, it's the closest to like a typical film. But it really made me angry. It made me angry with Jeff Bezos for letting his employees live in such squalor. And angry with elected officials for not doing anything to help these people either. Yet as the movie progressed, it seemed to say that these people want to live like this. Are they broken? Are they just this way? But then, who wants to poop in a bucket in a van that's their home. I know film, and there's two incidents of pooping outside, and I thought the first one was it, and then they pooped later on in the movie. And I was like, is this being presented as like a bad thing? And I think it's a bad thing. Or is it like being presented as like a way of life? I don't know if I can condone that as a way of life. I mean, I know that films can be open-ended, but I feel like Chloe Zhao's Nomadland is in many ways directionless. Now, some of you might be like, well, of course it's directionless, Grace. That mimics the directionlessness of the nomads that are the movie that it's about. But so I'll allow it from a creative perspective, but from an entertainment perspective, it makes the film really not enjoyable or, in my opinion, productive. I mean, the movie shines a light on a group of people that I'd never heard of before, but seems to be prevalent in America, and they seem to be suffering. So I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know this is happening. Let's help them. But then the movie was like, wait a minute, Grace, they like living this way. And I was like, oh, okay, so what do I do now? Do I just walk away? But I mean, it seems like they're suffering, but you're telling me they're not. But I think maybe they don't know, or maybe we should just have, I don't know. I thought some kind of intervention was necessary having seen the movie, but the movie seemed to tell me to just walk away. So what was the point of bringing this to my attention if I can't or shouldn't do anything about it? It was just weird to me. I'm sure some of you will defend this film in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to it, and I respect your opinion, but it was not for me. Frances McDormand and David Strathairn, it seemed like these people cross paths with me, and I thought that was fascinating, that to know that they were like on the fringes of everyone's life and we didn't know it. And so it's like, hey, I want to see you. But it seemed like the movie said they were like, no, don't look over here. So I'm like, what? It just was a weird feeling. Frances McDormand and David Strathairn are, of course, excellent. But to me, what I thought was the best part of the movie, actually, is the real-life nomads who play versions of themselves. But even there, I was like, did this really happen to you, or is this fictional? I couldn't tell. I thought some of their stories were quite moving, but yet I wasn't sure if they were true or not. So I wasn't sure how moved I should be. So that was also a little bit confusing. But they were darn good actors, I'll give them that. This film reminded me a lot of the work of Alexander Payne and Jason Reitman, who were two very grounded filmmakers who everyone was like, they're the next big thing, but then they proved to never be able to get off the ground. And I'm curious to see what Chloe Zhao does with Eternals. She's definitely a talented, competent filmmaker, but is she at all capable of doing something that's mainstream? We'll see. Now, as for Minari, it hits theaters February 12th. No word yet on if it has a streaming component just yet, or at release at least. I really wanted to like this movie. I felt that it was horrible the way it had been categorized as a foreign language film, even though it's made totally by Americans. And I like the fact that, it's about it's a modern, or semi-modern, 1980s immigrant story. People continue to come to this country every day to set up a life, and yet we only tell immigration stories about decades past. So to be able to see the story, this is a true story based on filmmaker Lee Isaac Chung's real life, growing up in a South Korean immigrant family on a rural farm in Arkansas, again in the 1980s, trying to achieve the American dream. And it stars Stephen Yeun from The Walking Dead. I was like, let's do this. But here, this film reminds me of the work of Terrence Malick. Now, I know some of you are like, oh my God, I love Terrence Malick. That's good, but few people do, because it's a beautiful movie, but nothing happens. Some things happen, but there's no follow through, which I found really frustrating. There are stops and starts, but there's not at all a traditional narrative here, in my opinion. And while it sounds like it's going to be an uplifting story, it is not an uplifting story. Now, again, it's based on this guy's real life growing up. So if he didn't have an uplifting upbringing, that's fine. Show me that. But after almost 2 hours, I have no idea what happened to his family, good or bad. They invited me in here to see what was going on, and yet I walked away with absolutely nothing. And there were some big questions raised, and they had nothing. They were just like, it was a little bit like Nomadland. I'm like, why did you introduce this to me and ask me about it if you weren't going to have this conversation with me or give me, any follow through? So I found this film also very unsatisfying. I guess I know that Chung grew up to become a filmmaker, and I Googled him and I found out that he first went to med school and then he became a filmmaker. And I'm like, that's interesting. How do your parents feel about it? I can't say. I had a lot of questions. And, and this film did not answer them whatsoever. I mean, I'm sure someone will be like, well, that was the point. But I don't think that the point shouldn't be like, oh my God, where's this filmmaker so I can find out about his family? Because I met them and now I would like to know what happened. Also, while Frances McDormand pooped in a bucket over in Nomadland, here someone drinks urine. That's all I'll say. But I'm trying to eat dinner while I watch these movies. I didn't appreciate that either. Finally, I'm very sorry to put One Night in Miami last, which just hit Amazon Prime Video. It hit Amazon Prime Video today. I love Regina King. She is such a talented actress, such a likable actress, a wonderful, wonderful person. I'm a huge fan of hers, and I'm so happy that she wants to go behind the camera and to get into directing and give a lot of, fellow Black talent the opportunity to have a great role for them, because Regina King has had a lot of great roles recently. So good. But I didn't think this was a very good film, I'm sorry to say. I mean, it spotlights a lot of really great talent. A lot of this talent is on Hollywood's paying attention to the talent in this movie. But I don't know if anything else is going to come out of this. The film does have a very good opening where it shows each of the historic characters, well, they're real people, each of the historic figures at a very low point in their lives. And I thought that was very well done and engaging, especially thanks to the cast. But after the opening scenes, the characters retreat to a hotel room in Miami, and the story slows down, not to a crawl, but I felt a complete standstill. It also doesn't help that the conversations being had here have been had before in film and TV, recently, and much better, and in a much more compelling way. I'm like, I already discussed this a lot, and it was more interesting. Plus, what also really bothered me about this is that I would much rather see what they actually did rather than this fictional, hypothetical conversation that they get into. It's a lot, one of the biggest rules of filmmaking is show, don't tell. And this movie's just, after the opening sequences, is just all tell. And it's conjecture about what these people maybe would have said. So I didn't like that. I thought that, I mean, all the ingredients are here, but I felt that the story itself was extremely weak. So that's my review of these Oscar contenders. They're all very strong awards contenders. And if you've had the chance to see these movies, they are screening. They have been at some festivals. I'd be very curious to hear your own thoughts down below. And also what you thought of my doing a batch review like this, a group review. All right, share those thoughts down below. Subscribe today. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.